Welcome to our deep dive into the world of dinosaurs. Dinosaurs discovered right here in the UK.
Right here in the UK.
You might be surprised to learn that there are 22 different dinosaur species that have been found in these islands. We'll be unearthing everything, from their sizes and diets to when they lived. Plus, get ready for some seriously cool facts that might just change how you see the British landscape.
You know, it's funny, when people think of dinosaurs, their minds immediately go to places like the American West or the Gobi Desert.
Of course.
But what many don't realize is that Britain has a deep and rich history in paleontology, going all the way back to the beginning of the field.
Okay, so set the stage for us. Just how important AS Britain to the study of dinosaurs?
Crucial, actually. The word dinosaur itself is a British invention.
Really?
Coined by Sir Richard Owen in the 1840s. And we have some true giants of science to thank for really putting British paleontology on the map. William Smith, the father of geology, created the first geological map of Britain in 1815.
Wow.
This was a game changer, allowing us to understand the layers of rock and where fossils might be found.
It's like he created the treasure map for all future dinosaur discoveries.
Exactly. And speaking of treasure, we can't forget Mary Anning. She was making groundbreaking discoveries in the early 1800s, mostly along the Jurassic coast in Dorset. Her finds, especially ichthyosaurs and plesiosaurs, which, while not technically dinosaurs, were massive marine reptiles, absolutely revolutionized our understanding of prehistoric life.
She's an icon, truly paving the way for women in science. But back to the dinos. It's easy to picture those epic, nearly complete skeletons you see in museums and assume that kind of discovery is rare in Britain.
That's a common misconception.
Okay.
While we do find fragments, Britain actually boasts one of the best dinosaur records globally, with remains from all three periods of the Mesozoic era: Triassic, Jurassic, and Cretaceous.
That's amazing. So we're talking the whole dinosaur timeline right here in the UK. To kick things off, let's talk about a true celebrity, Megalosaurus, the first dinosaur to ever be given an official name back in 1824.
A true legend.
Yeah.
Found in Oxfordshire, Megalosaurus was a theropod, meaning it walked on two legs, and like most in its group, was a meat eater. It really captures how much our understanding of dinosaurs has evolved. Early paleontologists imagined it as this giant lizard lumbering on all fours, almost like a massive iguana.
It's incredible how our picture of these creatures has changed over time. So what do we know about Megalosaurus? What did it actually look like?
Well, while a complete skeleton remains elusive, we do know it was a large, powerful predator. Its name means big lizard, which certainly fits.
All right, next up we have another early star, Iguanodon. Didn't they initially get its anatomy totally wrong?
Oh yes, the classic thumb spike blunder. Early reconstructions mistakenly placed its thumb spike on its nose.
Oh, wow.
It's a great example of how paleontology is a constantly evolving science.
Yeah.
We now know that Iguanodon was a large herbivore that could walk on both 2 and 4 legs and possibly had a very long tongue based on the muscle attachments in its skull.
That image is wild. Picture a giant, long-tongued Iguanodon lumbering through prehistoric Britain. Now, we can't forget the third member of this OG dinosaur trio, Hylaeosaurus. What's its claim to fame?
Hylaeosaurus often gets overshadowed.
Okay.
But it was crucial in establishing the concept of dinosaurs as a distinct group of animals. It was an armored dinosaur, and its discovery alongside Megalosaurus and Iguanodon helped cement the idea that these were creatures unlike anything we knew.
So 3 very different dinos, all found in the UK around the same time. That's remarkable. It really highlights just how diverse the dinosaur population was, even in what we think of as a relatively small area. But let's shift gears and talk about Baryonyx, this fascinating dinosaur that was discovered with a pretty interesting meal in its stomach.
Yes, Baryonyx. It's a fantastic example of how even a single fossil can rewrite our understanding of a species. Baryonyx was a theropod, but unlike Megalosaurus, it had a specialized snout and massive thumb claw, perfectly adapted for catching fish.
So basically a dinosaur built like a bear, but with a crocodile's head. It's like something out of a fantasy novel. But what makes this fossil so unique?
Well, alongside those fish bones, we also found Iguanodon bones in its stomach. This suggests Baryonyx might have been more opportunistic in its diet than previously thought, perhaps even scavenging on occasion.
Wow, that's a game changer. It paints a different picture of the prehistoric food chain than we might imagine. So we've got Baryonyx, the fish-eating dino with a possible taste for, well, anything. Now tell me about another amazing adaptation, Hypsilophodon. What made this one so special?
Hypsilophodon was a small and agile dinosaur that lived in prehistoric England. What's fascinating about it is its incredible speed. It had a lightweight build and powerful legs, making it one of the fastest dinosaurs of its time. This little herbivore likely relied on its speed to evade predators like baryonyx.
It's like the roadrunner of the dinosaur world. It makes you wonder, what was the landscape like to make speed such an essential survival tool? Speaking of survival, let's move on to some true tanks of the dinosaur world. Tell me about the armored giants, Dinosaurus and Polycanthus.
These two are fantastic examples of how dinosaurs evolved to defend themselves. Dinosaurus was a stegosaur, the first of its kind ever discovered. You might recognize its iconic plates running along its back. And Polycanthus was another armored herbivore, covered in spikes and bony plates along its back and sides.
I've always wondered, were those plates on Dinosaurus purely for defense, or did they serve another purpose?
They were likely multifunctional.
Huh.
Scientists believe they might have been used for display, attracting mates, or even regulating body temperature.
Multifunctional plates talk about efficiency. So we've got a meat-eating giant, a fish-eating opportunist, a speedy little herbivore, and some heavily armored herbivores. What other surprises does the UK's prehistoric past hold?
Well, remember how we mentioned a tyrannosaur ancestor was found in Britain? That's coming up next.
That's right.
Prepare to meet Proceratosaurus, a smaller theropod with a big claim to fame, being the oldest known relative of Tyrannosaurus rex.
So we're talking about the ancestor of the Tyrant King himself right here in the UK. I never would have guessed. What's the connection? How do we know they're related?
Well, Proceratosaurus lived during the Middle Jurassic, much earlier than T-Rex. It was a much smaller dinosaur, but if you look closely at its skull, you'll see some striking similarities. Proceratosaurus had a small crest on its snout, a feature that would become much more prominent in its later, more famous relatives.
So this little crest was like the prototype for the massive skull decorations we see on T-Rex. It's incredible to see those evolutionary echoes over millions of years. It makes you wonder, did Proceratosaurus have any other features that hint at the future T-Rex?
It's hard to say for certain, but its teeth were also quite similar to those of later tyrannosaurs, suggesting a shared lineage of powerful predators.
Okay, I'm officially mind blown. You know, we've talked about a lot of carnivores so far, but we haven't delved too much into the plant eaters. What about the giants of the Jurassic period?
Ah, yes, the sauropods.
The sauropods.
Britain had its fair share of these incredible behemoths. One that immediately comes to mind is Cetiosauruscus, a massive sauropod whose name means like a whale lizard. And believe me, the name is no exaggeration.
Like a whale lizard. That just screams enormous. Give me some perspective. Just how W big are we talking?
Imagine a creature reaching lengths of up to 15 meters lumbering through the prehistoric landscape. It would have towered over most other dinosaurs.
Wow, I can't even imagine the kind of vegetation these giants must have consumed to fuel those massive bodies. Talk about an all-you-can-eat prehistoric buffet. Were there any sauropods that were even bigger than Cetiosauruscus?
Indeed. We can't forget Pelorosaurus, another sauropod whose name means monstrous lizard. This behemoth dwarfed even Cetiosauruscus, reaching a staggering 25 meters in length.
That's longer than a bowling lane. It's hard to wrap your head around that kind of size. These sauropods were like the cruise ships of the dinosaur world.
They were truly awe-inspiring creatures, and their fossils paint a vivid picture of the scale and majesty of prehistoric ecosystems.
It really makes you appreciate the interconnectedness of life even millions of years ago. So I've talked about England and Scotland, but what about Wales? Any cool dinosaur discoveries there? You mentioned a Welsh dragon earlier.
Ah, yes, Pantydraco. Now, it wasn't a fire-breathing dragon, but it was a fascinating dinosaur nonetheless. It was a prosauropod, a group of early herbivorous dinosaurs, and lived during the late Triassic.
So what's the story behind the name Pantydraco?
Its name, meaning Pantyphine dragon, refers to the location in Wales where it was discovered. It's a great example of how paleontologists often pay homage to the places where these incredible creatures are found.
I love that. It gives each dinosaur a real sense of place. So Pantydraco, a Welsh dragon. It makes me wonder, were any of these British dinosaurs particularly unique, something we don't see anywhere else in the world?
Absolutely. We have Eotyrannus, whose name means dawn tyrant. It was another early tyrannosaur, much smaller than its famous relative Tyrannosaurus rex, and lived during the early Cretaceous. It provides a fascinating window into the early evolution of this iconic group of predators.
2 tyrannosaur ancestors found in Britain. That's just incredible. It seems like the UK was a hotbed of tyrannosaur evolution. So, What else is lurking in the shadows of prehistoric Britain? What other predators were on the scene?
Well, let's introduce you to Beckel spinax, a large theropod whose name means Beckel spine after the collector who discovered its remains. This dinosaur lived during the early Cretaceous and is known for its tall spines, which may have formed a hump or sail along its back.
A sail-backed predator. That's an image I won't soon forget. Were those sails for display, defense, or something else entirely?
That's a great question, and it's one that paleontologists are still debating. Some believe the sail might have played a role in thermoregulation, helping Beckel spinax to control its body temperature. Others think it might have been used for display, attracting mates, or intimidating rivals.
It's fascinating to imagine these creatures using such elaborate features to navigate their world. What other unique predators roamed prehistoric Britain?
We have Eustreptospondylus, another large theropod, whose name means well-curved vertebra. This formidable predator reached lengths of up to 7 meters and lived during the Middle Jurassic.
Wow. It seems like every dinosaur we've talked about had some unique feature or adaptation. It really highlights the incredible diversity of life during the Mesozoic era. What other surprises are hidden in Britain's fossil record?
Well, there's Metriacanthosaurus, a large theropod whose name means moderately spined lizard. This dinosaur, which lived during the late Jurassic, is known for the tall spines on its vertebrae, which might have formed a ridge or hump along its back.
It's like a prehistoric puzzle, piecing together these clues from millions of years ago. What else can these fossils tell us?
They can reveal so much. For example, the fossils of Sarcosaurus, a smaller theropod whose name means flesh lizard, tell us that it wasn't as large or fearsome as its name suggests. It lived during the early Jurassic and reached lengths of only about 3 meters.
So not quite the terrifying, flesh-ripping terror its name might suggest.
Exactly. And then there's Solidosaurus, an armored dinosaur from the early Jurassic. It was a relatively primitive member of the Thyreophorine group, which includes the later stegosaurs and ankylosaurs. Its fossils show us the early stages of how dinosaurs evolved those impressive defenses.
So Solidosaurus was like the early prototype for those heavily armored dinos? That's so cool. Are there any other dinosaurs we should know about from this period?
We can't forget about the prosauropods. The Cotodontosaurus, whose name means socket-toothed lizard, was one of the earliest dinosaurs and lived during the late Triassic. And then there's Valdosaurus, a small ornithopod from the early Cretaceous.
Ornithopod, that's a new one. What does that tell us about Valdosaurus?
Ornithopods were a diverse group of herbivorous dinosaurs, often characterized by their bipedal stance and bird-like hips. Valdosaurus was a relatively small ornithopod, likely living in herds and browsing on low-lying vegetation.
It's amazing how much we can learn from these fossils. We've covered so much ground in this deep dive, from the giants of the Jurassic to the small but mighty herbivores. It's been an incredible journey through prehistoric Britain. What are your final thoughts as we wrap up our dinosaur adventure?
They can. It really is. We've journeyed through millions of years uncovering the lost world of dinosaurs that once roamed the UK.
Exactly. We've talked about 22 different dinosaurs.
Right.
But there's so much more to explore even within those species. But here's a question that's been on my mind. With so much of Britain already explored, is there really much left to discover?
That's a great question. While much of the UK has been surveyed, new discoveries are being made all the time.
Oh, really?
Think about our ever-changing coastline. Erosion is constantly revealing new fossil deposits. And then there's the possibility of finding fossils in unexpected places like construction sites, quarries, even someone's garden.
So the next big dinosaur discovery could be just beneath our feet, waiting to be unearthed.
That's so exciting. It reminds me of that scene in Jurassic Park where they find that velociraptor claw.
Exactly. And that's what makes paleontology so captivating. It's a field where new discoveries can happen at any moment, potentially rewriting our understanding of the past.
It's a reminder that we're still piecing together the story of life on Earth. Who knows what other incredible creatures are out there just waiting to be found?
And that's the beauty of this deep dive. It's not just about the dinosaurs we've discussed, but about sparking that sense of wonder and curiosity about the world around us.
I couldn't agree more. So to our listeners, the next time you're out for a walk, especially along the coast, keep your eyes peeled. You never know what prehistoric treasures might be hiding in plain sight.
And remember, every fossil tells a story, a glimpse into a lost world that's both fascinating and humbling.
This deep dive has been an incredible journey, and I'm so grateful to have had you as our guide. I can't wait to see what the future holds for paleontology in the UK. The possibilities are endless. Who knows? Maybe one of our listeners will make the next groundbreaking discovery.
Now that would be amazing. A huge thanks to our listeners for joining us on this prehistoric adventure.
Until next time, keep exploring, keep questioning, and never lose that sense of wonder about the incredible history of life on our planet.